Welcome to the Peet Reet Show. I'm Pete.
And I'm Reet.
Yeah, listen, we've been on a hiatus a little bit.
We have.
Yeah, we were supposed to be on the air a little while ago, but I ended up in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer. And then you had a copy.
And I didn't copy you, it just happened. Maybe you gave me the ulcer.
It's a possibility. I don't know how I got mine, though. And then we just had our Peet Reet Christmas affair.
Oh, it was so much fun helping people that need help at Christmas time, being able to give them some great food, beautiful dinner, fabulous venue. Gourmet chefs.
And some great entertainment,
Great.
some singing. And, you know, these are people in need. And that's one of the big things on the Peet Reet Show that we want to continue to do on every show. And, you know, you never
Only
know.
because we may be in need.
Exactly. Remember, folks, that's the truth, though. It's a privilege to be able to help people, and you never know when you're going to be on the other end of that.
You got to give back.
Hey, listen, I got my my first Emmy here, and I just...
You don't have an Emmy?
Well, no, I mean, the first opportunity to actually hold an Emmy.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so did you want your own Emmy, too?
I would love an Emmy.
Here.
Do I get to keep it?
Well, no. And actually, our guest, who will be on shortly on the Peet Reet Show, we really love this guy. He's fantastic. I don't think who he is, but we're going to find out whose Emmy these really are when we come back.
Welcome back to the Peet Reet Show. We're so excited today to have an amazing guest in studio with us.
Well, actually, we're not in studio. We're on location today. You forget we're on
that's
location.
true.
And I don't know how happy he is to be here, but I mean, it is.
Maybe he's not happy at all.
You're in my man cave. I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Mellanby. And maybe you should give a little lowdown on what this man is all about.
Oh, my
Because you know
gosh.
what happens? I'll tell you what happens. In our circle of television broadcast, everybody knows who Ralph Mellanby is, right?
Everyone.
But of course, the public doesn't realize what they're watching is produced and put together by a genius, which happens to be this guy right here.
Amazing. 5-time Emmy Award winner.
Yeah, they're your Emmys.
Yeah, they're not ours, darn it. But I will take one when I leave, just letting you know.
All I want is money.
Okay, all right.
After the show, get the check ready for them.
Done Olympic Games for what, 1974 to 96, something like that?
15 of them. And
15. Unbelievable. 12 golf championships.
Yeah.
Let me see, 15 tennis championships.
Canadian
Opens, yeah. Unbelievable. And the thing I've got to talk most about is the fact that you wrecked every Saturday night in my life growing up because I had to watch Hockey Night in Canada.
And Wednesdays, too.
But I had to go to bed. I was in school, right? And Saturday nights, Hockey Night in Canada, and Don Cherry, Coach's Corner, creator of that as well. So, and I used to yell at Don all the time.
Don't blame me.
Executive producer for 20 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, 20 years, and then I also did, which I'm most proud of, as an old baseball player, I did the Blue Jays and the Expos when they started. So
You did their very first game too, didn't you? Ever?
Both places, yeah.
Wow.
It was great fun.
Now, you met some great and important, famous people. We're going to talk about those later. Let's start back in Hamilton. It was 1934.
34, yeah.
And this little guy was born.
In case you can't add, I'm 81 years old.
August 22nd.
August 22nd.
How did you know that?
I'll
See,
do my
yeah.
research.
It's a day that will live in infamy.
So you lived there until you were 11 years old, and then the family moved to Essex, which is close to Windsor.
Yeah. My dad switched newspapers. My dad worked the Hamilton Spectator, and it was a great place to live. Hamilton, a great place to grow up. I was the only boy, and we had 2 large families, but everybody kept having girls. I was the only boy in both sides family. Of course,
the golden child.
I was spoiled rotten.
Oh, I was just going to ask you that. Were you spoiled?
And all my aunts and uncles and grandparents and relatives all lived in Hamilton. And suddenly my dad came home one day and said, well, I'm taking a new job and I'm going to the Windsor Star, a famous newspaper also. And
So you're going from the big city of Hamilton, steel
To
mills,
Windsor.
everything happening to Windsor.
I thought Windsor was in London, near London somewhere. But anyways, I thought it was the end of my life because I'm leaving all my family and little friends. I had.
Yeah.
And here I go, and we've settled. We were in Windsor for a while, our farm. We went to the farm, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So did you pitch hay and do all the farming things?
I did everything. In fact, I learned that my first driving was on a tractor when I was about 13.
Nice.
Lots of fun.
Lots of fun, lots of fun. But my dad did a great thing. He was a very smart man. He wasn't a farmer. His dream was, he grew up in New York, in England, and his dream was to have a farm. Don't ask me why. And so we bought a 5.5 acre farm, and what he did is he leased 5 of the acres out to the neighboring farmers.
Right.
You won't believe the story, but one of them was across the road, was Pa Kettle, Frank Kettle.
Oh, that's great.
I didn't know. Of course, the lease came. At that time, I did have a little sister. My brother hadn't been born, but I was the oldest boy, and I didn't know that I went with the lease. I had to work on all those farms. But it was a great learning experience for me, and but when you grow up in a small town, I always remember when we arrived, we had a phone that was,
Party line.
Party line.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately,
Ours was 3 long range and 1 short. And when I'd answer the phone, I'd hear everybody clicking on, click, 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 everybody in essence. But what's great about
And then when you were talking, you used to hear the click back as somebody's trying to listen to your conversation.
That's right.
Too, right?
And it was great. I think I owe a lot to that town. To me, growing up in a small town, which of course before Hamilton it was a city, and everybody takes care of you. I always remember when we took over the farm from the owners, they said, "Well, Ralph's the new boy in town." That kind of shocked me at 11 years old. Well, but I was. It was just a great place to grow up and live and learn and be taken care of.
Now, did you work there too, like as a kid? Did you have jobs?
I had to work. My dad was an old English school guy, and he just said, "You're 13, now you got to get a job." So I had a job doing the Essex Free Press newspapers all over the place on my bike. And then the next job I had, the next one was in the bowling alley, actually, setting pins in the Essex, they call it the Essex Recreation Center, but it only had pool and a bar, and, it was kind of mislabeled. And then I kept doing small jobs. I worked at Stokely Van Camp, the canning factory where the town was built around. And I was always learning, always learning. I could never understand why I was never given any money for this, but it went to my parents. And then the last job I had all through high school, I worked at Gay's SO, would you believe it, Imperial Oil, gas station, pumping gas. And
How long did you do that for?
4 years. Wow. And I loved it. I loved it. And the reason Cy said that he was a great mentor to me, and one of the first guys I learned marketing. Marketing means that if you went to the SO station this week, you got a toy doll, or you got, it was always giving out stuff. If you fill it up, you get this. And he was always teaching me, don't just say, in marketing, you don't say how much gas, you say, fill her up. So I learned about branding from him, and then, it was a wonderful place. It was a wonderful place to go to high school.
Let's go to the Mellanby household. What was it like in the Mellanby? Your siblings are quite a bit younger than you. But...
Well, my brother had been born by 48, and I was the older brother. My mother was terrific. She had been a professional singer.
Oh,
really?
Married my dad, a newspaper man, gave it all up to be with him, and that's love. And but she was a real, she was strict, but the type of mother every guy dreams of having. She was great. And my dad, he was great too, but he was a little aloof from me and the other kids. Boy, it was long days and working and stuff. And but my mom was, she only sang at Christmas. My Uncle Norman used to come, and he was the lead soloist at a big group that was on television, and a barbershop quartet.
Yeah.
And then he became the lead soloist at the Timothy Eaton Church. And the only time she'd ever sing, we had a piano and everything.
Yeah.
The only time she'd ever sing was with her brother, Norman. And it was wonderful just to sit and
listen. What was the song that you liked the most that she did?
I think the song I liked most was from one of the first movies I saw was Bing Crosby, and it was Swinging on a Star or something like that.
Yes.
Great.
Would you like to swing on a star? Yeah.
Carry moonbeams, home in a jar.
And I learned a lot from my uncles and who used to come and visit us. But most of all, I learned from the people in the town about everything. And that was the education in school was great, but you really learn from experience.
Yeah, I think that was the great thing about, even when we grew up, that it took a lot of people to raise your kids. And we were raised by a lot of different people in the
That's
neighborhood
right.
because we were in a smaller town, right?
Yeah, and you knew everybody.
Yeah, and nowadays this raises you, you know?
You couldn't get away with much because everybody knew you or knew your parents.
Yeah, exactly.
And my mom was great because she loved animals, and we had 3 dogs at a time. And Butch, everybody said Butch, the big dog, was a wolf, but I'm not sure about that. And a couple of cats for the barn to kill the mice and rats.
Of course.
And, it was good. It was good.
We're going to get back to the story of Ralph Mellanby and how he became the success he was and what he did in life in just a minute.
You're in my house.
His wife is upstairs. Come on.
Well, welcome back to the Peet Reet Show, and of course we're always having fun behind the scenes and
talking with amazing people.
Yeah, and Ralph's story, amazing story. Now, you had all this work to do. You're working, pumping gas. You're working in stores, working on the farm,
Bowling alley, everything.
bowling alley. You must have had some time for some sports.
Yes. Well, when you really start young, and I was actually playing with the men at 15, the senior team. And in those days, you remember, especially in the 40s into the 50s, we had our own baseball team. Every baseball team in the county was sponsored by the canning factory of it. Ours was Stokely Van Camp. And they had junior and midget and all that stuff, but I went right to the men and played with them and at 15. And then another good learning experience. Watching them drink beer behind the dugout. And then, so I was into baseball right away. I mean, that's one of the things. And then when I got in high school, I took up basketball and football, the regular, volleyball and all that stuff. And I was very proud to be named the athlete of the century in my hometown, by the way.
Wow.
And I was very good at all of them. We won the All-Ontario High School Basketball Championship in 1954 and beat a team from Niagara Falls, where I live now.
Wow.
See, that's pretty impressive. I mean, when you go back to a small farming community like that.
We played our final game in Maple Leaf Gardens, and first time we'd ever seen glass backboards, all wood,
Yeah.
And we had a great coach, Roy Battigello, a man that really inspired me, and I was the captain of that team. And but it was just everything about school agreed with me. My teachers, I worked on the school newspaper. My dad was a newspaper guy, with Ernie Monteith, and one of my teachers said, "Well, you got to work on the school newspaper. You must be. This is grade 9, And then I got involved in the school and the student council, and especially cadets. They don't do this anymore, but I was the sergeant major of the cadet corps, and the young people won't understand this anymore. But every high school had cadets all over Ontario.
Yeah, my dad was a cadet.
And I loved that, and that's where I learned we had a rifle range. That's where I learned how to shoot and become a good hunter on the farm.
You learned discipline too. A lot.
You won't believe this, but the years I was in high school, and our principal, Pete Hall, another guy I idolized.
How do you remember these names?
I know. I can't remember who I met last
was
week.
Mr. Hall, by the way. He was an ex-Army guy. He served in both World Wars, World War I and World War II.
Wow.
And he came back and he was the principal forever. But the boys had to walk down and change class. The boys had to walk down one side of the aisle, and the girls the other in the hallways.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
It is something.
And he's the same principal. I'll tell you how wise he was, that in my senior year in high school, in the cafeteria, he put in a jukebox for dancing.
Wow.
That's how much he'd come.
Now, even back
How
then,
far?
too, didn't bars, women and men went in different
Sides,
entrances? Yeah.
different sides, the bar, well, everybody in my town went to the Legion. Even if they served or hadn't served, it was the kind of the
Place to
home
go.
base for everybody to go. It's still there, still got the bars. And
Now, you've got a famous son, Scott Mellanby. Everybody knows, great hockey player, fantastic hockey player.
funny how you tie them into bars, but that's
Different story.
Yeah,
another TV
another
show.
time.
But no hockey for you? You didn't play any hockey?
No, we didn't have hockey. I did play a little bit of hockey in Hamilton. when I was growing up in the church that I went to, we had a rink, and well, I was talking about 4 and 5, 6 and 7. So I learned how to skate. But when we got to Essex in southern Ontario, you got to remember there was no artificial ice.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much of a
true.
winter. We used to have a joke that we had 3 great weeks on Hutchie's Pond. That was a big pond outside of Essex that froze. And you had to get out there fast because there was 100 kids out there. You know what I mean? But no, I loved hockey. My dad used to take me over to see the Red Wings at the Olympia. And I'd go and see the Windsor Spitfires, the juniors, and a lot of famous people there. But no, we had we were lucky to get a month of skating. And there was no artificial ice to have a team. In fact, my dad, and it's a good story, it's a great story about him, about what a small town's like. I was living in Chicago. I came home and my dad said, well, we're going to build an arena for the boys to have a hockey team and the girls.
Wow.
And I said, wow, that's fast. He said, yeah. We were over at Mac Miller's playing cards, and the mayor was there, and Father so-and-so was there, and this guy, all the big hitters in town, used to go to Mac Miller's
Yep.
Tuesday nights. And he said, we decided we're going to build an arena, and we're going to use the fairgrounds. I said, Dad, you just can't, you got to get permits, and you got to get this.
Zoning.
No, we don't. We've decided. That's it.
Sound like somebody else you know?
And they built it in a year and a half.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's still, well, they just apparently are tearing it down. And that was in 1959.
That's incredible.
I hate to see
And
the old arenas going down.
that led us, though, to Kyle Wellwood, Brad Selwood, great hockey players, the Crowder brothers, who all played in
Yeah,
the NHL.
yeah.
Yeah.
Without that arena, they might have
Who
been
knows?
playing some football or something.
Yeah, see, in Niagara Falls, where I'm from, they've taken down the Stanford Memorial and the Niagara Falls Memorial.
Yeah,
where
it's
the
sad.
Flyers won all the
Yeah.
the Memorial Cups and stuff. That's just
was-
sitting there doing nothing. But see, to me, a memorial building should be there for good.
And it was a good arena, and it was when I had my night. Well, I had a day in Essex, and they gave me a day, and we had a big show on Hockey Night Canada's anniversary, and they had most of it in that arena, and it gave me a big thrill to think my dad.
Oh,
built
looking
this.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking down and built this, and it held up for a long. Well, it's a long 60 years.
So I mean, you had a busy youth. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on.
There's always something in a small town to do.
But when do we start thinking, I think I want to be in broadcasting? I think I want to be.
No, I wasn't that much. I wanted to be a baseball player, and I was good. And I got scouted. I was very accidentally scouted. We used to grab the truck, 5 or 6 of my buddies, and they never used to have a scouting system in those days in Canada.
Yeah.
But they used to have camps in the stadiums around the county and Windsor. And we used to all pile in because we got a hat and a T-shirt. Never expected to have anybody get interested in it.
That was your incentive?
And you would arrive with about 150 boys who thought that they were good. A lot of them you played against. And they would line you all up. You had to sign in. You always put another 10 pounds on your weight and another inch and a half on your height.
Yeah.
And then you said, so I went, we had all the Tigers and all the Chicago White Sox camps. We just did it to get the hats and the T-shirt and have a little bit of fun. And the problem with having 5 or 6 of us going was that if one, they'd line you up and you'd put down all the names and they say, okay, this guy, if you only played an inning at the most, maybe an inning and a half,
Right.
and they didn't really know yet. So this camp I went to in Tecumseh, Ontario, the Green Giant Camp,
Yep.
canning factory, and I'd played ball there. And so they said, well, okay, here's the starting 9 for Team White, and this is the starting team for Team Red, okay? I said, okay, blah, blah, blah. They knew the catchers and pitchers were, but they didn't know anybody. Mellanby, first base. I'd never played first base. So one of the guys was a
Right.
first baseman with me. Let me borrow your glove, And you had about a 30-second infield practice, and off you went. And you knew you were only playing an inning. None of the other guys were named, okay? So I get up the plate, and this guy was pitching. He also played with the men when he was about 16. He ended up playing with the Yankees, by the way.
Wow.
Left-handed pitcher. I never got a foul ball at that guy in the league ever. I couldn't touch him. I said, this could be great.
I'm done.
I ain't going to last an inning. So I got up, but I always knew he liked to throw a strike on his first pitch, and he had 100-mile-an-hour fastball, So we wound up, threw it in, and I knocked it over the center field fence.
Wow.
I played all day. I played
I bet you did.
second base. I played left field. And the guys were so mad at me. They said, we want to go home. God, we got our T-shirt and hat, Rob. And then this guy came over to me at the end, and they said, Mellanby, what are you doing? What do you play? And I said, I play with the senior men. And I was about 17 then. And I said, I'm in high school. And he said, well, he said, you're going to get a call from a man called Zach Wheat. He's in the Hall of Fame, by the way, an old outfielder. He's going to scout you. My dad was thrilled. My dad, he was an old ball player too, as my uncles were. Zach Wheat's coming to see us, you know. And he was a big fat guy, looked, he couldn't, never mind, hardly sit down. And my dad had to feed him lots of beer, you know.
Always the answer.
But he came and watched me and watched me and watched me. And then when they got time to sign me, they said, all my dad said is, you have to pay for his education. Nobody had ever.
And we're going to hold you there.
Okay.
Yes.
We're going to find out where you went from there, and it kind of led into
Where I am now.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So we'll be back in just a moment with the Peet Reet Show and special guest today.
And welcome back to Peet and Reet with Mr. Ralph Mellanby, our guest today.
And we're at his house with his
It's
trophies.
amazing.
And these.
Yeah.
Maybe
Gotta
one-
love that.
Maybe one day.
I'll count
Maybe
them.
one
I'm
day.
going to count them all before I leave.
Darn.
So, they're interested in you, they've seen you, you whacked the ball out of the park.
Yeah, well, I got signed, and then but I had to go to American University for them to pay for it. So I could go in the winter. I could do it for the 3 months.
What do your parents think about this? Because I mean, back
My
then,
dad loved it. My
Did he?
dad-
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause we got a great picture here, which we'll show you. That's you and Dad right there, right?
Me and Dad. So I signed the day I signed my contract.
Did your dad play as well?
My dad helped coach, but he got the thing. He helped coach the kids, not the senior men. He coached the kids, but we had the same uniforms. Everybody had the same uniform.
Yeah.
Whether you're midget or you're junior or whatever you
Probably
had.
handed down too.
Came from the Canning Company, right?
They paid for everything.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's very simple that I was signed and went to spring training in Bradenton, Florida. And you all go to the same camp with all the big guys, Stan Musial and all those guys
Yeah.
are there. And then you're sent. I was sent to Class C and Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
And which position were you in?
Shortstop.
Shortstop.
And then had a great year and stayed with a lovely. It was a great story because we had one black player on the team. His name was Richard Dungy.
Mm-hmm.
And none of the American guys, I was the only Canadian, you had to room with another guy
Yeah.
at a boarding house. And nobody rest. So I said, I'll room with Richard. Great guy, great guy. And he entertained me all the time. And he's Tony Dungy's father.
Oh, wow.
He's a minister now in Detroit. But anyways, it was great to learning. And then I went back to school and
You went to Wayne.
Wayne.
Wayne, yeah.
And then I went through my baseball 3 years, 2 years and a month. But
So you were playing pro ball.
Yeah.
And taking a semester of school.
That's
at the
right,
same time.
yeah.
And what were you taking? Like, I mean, were you just taking courses to
just
get
get
through?
just get credits
Yeah.
because you don't have to declare your major till your third, or well, it would be actually 1, 2, 4, your fifth semester.
So you're taking art?
Basket weaving.
Picking up girls,
Drinking
anything
beer?
that was easy. Well, I was pretty smart, so I could do that. But then I busted up my leg pretty badly, and
Now you were slid into second, feet first.
feet first, and broke my kneecap off and tore up
Right.
my leg. In fact, the doctor in Windsor when I came home said it was the worst leg injury he'd ever seen.
Oh, wow.
And
That
I
must have been really disappointing for
Well,
you.
that's I mean, you're done.
And how old were you then?
I was 21, I guess, 21.
Yeah, I see.
Was that what you thought you were going to do for the rest of your life?
That's
Is
what I
that-
hoped I would do.
Yeah.
Didn't make much money even in those days for the pros, but and then I convalesced, and then my dad, in this typical way, said, "Well, you got to get a job."
And that didn't go well.
I'm not paying for that college because the ball club just cut me off.
Oh, of course.
And so I said, okay, can you help me? So my mom and dad got their heads together and they called CKLW Television and talked them into giving me a job 4 to 12 so I could go to school in the daytime. Was the toilet job of the station.
Oh, awesome.
And that's when I decided to take television communications because this could be a career, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think my dad was too happy. He wanted me to take journalism. I told him I was going to take journalism, by the way. So I started out at the TV station, was relatively new, and I was surrounded by tremendous professors at that station, cameramen, stagehands. They taught me.
Yeah, and when you
A
want
lot more I was ever learned in school.
and when you want to learn, you learn.
You know?
Right.
And I started out and started to move up in different jobs. But my dad always had that theory. He said, you know, it's like the newspaper business. Learn from the ground up. Learn every job if you want to be a great newspaper man. So that's what I did. And then the opportunities started to flow in, and I went over for a little bit.
What year was that?
That would be
58?
59. I was there till 59.
Now, I have a question to ask you because
Yeah.
I heard that you were a cameraman for Soupy Sales.
I worked on the Soupy Sales show.
Are you kidding me?
No, I wanted to, I didn't want to get logged into, you know, there were so many independent stations and so few networks. And I really had my eye, a guy called Frank Quinn was a director at CKLW. He said, Ralph, you got to get to the networks. That's the only way you make it. So I did that. This is before Soupy was network, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I went on to WGN in Chicago, and
But how did you, as a Canadian, how did you get to work in Detroit?
I had a student visa. And you can't do it now, but they give you a 2 years.
Now, WGN was a superstation. Still is a superstation.
Was then too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did the Cubs and the White Sox and the Blackhawks and the Bears. And I again was taught by a guy called Arnie Harris, used to direct everything, and taught me the business. And it was really funny because when the new network was starting in CTV,
Yeah.
the cornerstone of the network was football,
CFL.
CFL.
news and football.
Yep.
So I had a good friend in the, his name was, now don't laugh about this, his name was Don Knotts, not Don Knotts. He used to
Don
say,
Knotts.
Not Knotts.
Henry Schlimpin.
And he had taken a liking to me, and I knew I couldn't stay too much longer in the States. He was at some type of show, trade show, and for television, and met some of the executives at CTV. And he lied, because I'd never directed anything. I'd always
He
been
lied
an
for
AD
you.
and a PA and assistants, you know. He said, I got a real hot Canadian at my WGN, and WGN was revered. There was CBS, NBC, ABC, and the superstations, WGN,
Yeah.
and KTLA in LA.
Oh, yeah.
And so he said, this guy is a fabulous director, and you're looking for a football director, and he's Canadian.
Were you looking behind you?
Wow.
He was talking to Brad Hayworth. Is it Hayworth?
Bud Hayward.
Bud Hayward.
Bud Hayward.
Bud Hayward.
And so next thing I knew, I went up and, but in those days, the stations, they had a sales office in Toronto, but the sports department, there was a small sports department with Johnny Esau, but you had to be assigned to a station. It was like Share the Wealth, and they were owned by the 8 stations.
Oh, yeah.
So I picked Montreal because my uncle, Henry, was a very successful businessman, ran the Henry Morgan Company, which later became Hudson's Bay. And
Wow.
I had a free place to stay for a few months.
I guess so.
And I went up and interviewed. I had to go to Toronto first, and then I went to Montreal to be interviewed. And I always felt badly because from the questions I had to lie. Because
Yes, I've done it
the
before.
president of the station, I'd like to lie.
And plus, you're sweating.
Oh
Now you're-
yeah,
Yeah.
I had the Bears. I had
Stressful.
and but I knew how to do it because
Yeah.
I learned from. I mean, Arnie Harris was a superb director. And in those days, there was no producer and director. You were a producer-director. That's how they called you. Television was a lot simpler then. And I always remember we had to do the first football game out of Montreal, which was great for me. And the test run, you won't believe the story, but it was an exhibition game. It wasn't televised on CTV, but it was a test run to see if we could do it.
How many cameras?
Oh.
5 cameras. And guess who they played the exhibition game? One half American rules, one half Canadian, the Chicago Bears.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well, I knew Red Grange. I'd worked with them, and they all come in, and I said, now look, you got to tell anybody you're talking to from my network. I directed there. Arnie Harris is here. He directed. I directed. But you know what? The first game was a big success. I always remember going to the first production meeting with Johnny Esau, and I had, a lot of experience working with first-class people.
Yeah.
And I always remember Johnny, who is a giant in the business now, and lately, an award winner, and we sat down, and we were all rookies, and Astaire was the famous football player, was the color man. And all Johnny offered at the meeting, but I'll never forget, he says, we can't say Molson Stadium, as we're sponsored by Carling O'Keefe. Well, how about the kickoff? How about How about whatever? So I realized he didn't know any more than I did, right?
And then you felt better.
And what happened though, in those days, the agency guy would come in, they're usually jerks, and sit at the back of the truck. It wasn't as complicated.
Yeah.
Behind you. And the guy was there, the agency for Carling O'Keefe. And Johnny said, well, it's a beautiful day here, Stuke, and our opening game on CTV, and blah, 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 blah. Johnny was a wonderful talent. And Stuke said, he had a gravelly voice, he said, yeah, John, it's really great here today in Molson Stadium. And the guy behind me, I thought was going to kill me. So we got into the end of the first quarter. The floor manager upstairs, the AD, called down and says, Ralph? I said, yeah. Stuke says he's sorry.
And we're going to stop you there, Ralph.
Okay,
We're going to take a break.
Yeah, more on the legacy of Ralph Mellanby when we come back.
Welcome back to Peet Reet Show and our great, fantastic guest, Mr. Ralph Mellanby. Can I call you Ralph?
Call me Ralphie if you want.
Ralphie.
Hey, Ralphie boy.
You know,
Ralphie.
when I worked in Europe and I worked in Cuba and I worked in Spain and all over the world, and every Spanish-speaking country, they call me Raphael. I love that.
Raphael.
I keep trying to get people in Niagara to call me that, but they won't.
You're like a Ninja Turtle
We
then.
can call him that, Raphael.
Raphael.
Raphael. So anyways, you were CTV, and at CTV you started doing CFL.
I did
games.
everything.
Yeah, you did variety shows,
News.
Quiz shows, news.
Entertainment.
I was, but in those days, if you were a fine director, I remember when I went to Variety and Entertainment for the few years, had a great executive producer, a guy called Pip Wedge, who'd come from England to BBC. I was learning all the time, but I was very nervous, and I always remember Pip saying to me, if you can direct sports, you can direct this. This is all scripted.
Perfect.
So I went on that, but that's another show.
So actually, what happens here is, and I think when we look at it, and when we look at your life and why you were such a success, is that you had the sports end of it,
And I had everything else too.
and then you had the entertainment, and it was like, hey, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Let's not just have a guy standing up there talking, the play-by-play, but let's do some entertainment.
Well, I was, when we started with hockey, it was still owned by Hockey Night in Canada. It was Hockey Night in Canada #2. Started on Wednesdays. You remember, for years it was only on Saturday.
Yeah.
Then I went to Wednesdays, and that's how I got to meet the executives around Ted Huff and people that ran Hockey Night in Canada.
Frank Selke was involved in that.
Frank Selke. Frank was the host at that time.
Wow.
And they got to know me as a guy that was a pretty good hockey director. And what happened was, and it's all luck, they decided after the playoffs, we never did playoffs on CTV, but that they weren't happy with the show, especially the pre and post game and the intermissions. And some bright guy who I owe my career to, and you've got to remember, I was at the top in Canada. I wasn't doing all the work I would do later at CBS, NBC.
Yeah.
he said, what we need is a guy who's show business to be our executive producer. Never had an executive producer. And everybody said, well, Ralph Mellanby. They thought showbiz was singers, dancers, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
all that stuff. So I got a cold call at home from
Now, what is an executive producer? Because a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah.
you run it, you hire everybody, you run, you're the
And
you're
you fire.
The man.
Well, I fired a couple of guys, but you build the show. You also build the pattern of the show. All the producers answer you, all the directors, all the crew. I mean, you're the guy. And I always remember the call from Ted, who became my boss and a very great mentor to me. The way he put it, he says, I know you're doing all this music and variety stuff and in concert and musical showcase. You probably won't be interested in this offer.
Yeah, right.
I didn't think he was talking about Hockey Night in Canada. He said, we're looking for an executive producer. Will you meet with us? And I met with him in Montreal, and
Now you changed,
I didn't know I was the only candidate.
but you changed the course.
You were the only candidate?
Yeah.
I was the only, well, because
Wow.
Imperial Oil, Ford and Molson really owned the show.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
different
They're all
back
at
then,
that
right?
meeting.
Yeah.
They said showbiz. Well,
True.
and I was doing all the showbiz stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be Ralph Mellanby. He also does hockey.
Well, you changed the whole course of what Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, I was very lucky. But I had a lot of help with a lot of people, and I really didn't think, my friend was Norman Jewison too at that time, and gave me some tips on how to handle artists and everything. But I really thought this was a short-term gig. So I really took a lot of chances. I said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to buy our own equipment, we're going to put in the first replay. We really went.
Yeah,
All
the
out.
instant replay, remember?
All
that
out.
was
Oh,
the
yeah.
best when that came in.
But and what the CBC and CTV wouldn't give me, I would go to the States with my friends and call WGN or call Renard.
Make it happen?
No, I'd say, what have you got? No, we just got super slow motion. Well, how do I get that? Well, it's done by RCA and blah, 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 who you call, and we'd buy it. Because I knew if I had to go through the network,
You wouldn't.
dummies,
Yeah.
it'd be 5 years.
Now in '68, you got a 10-year contract, and there was no exclusivity, so you could do other things as well.
That's how they kept me. And my boss was a lot smarter than I was, and I was getting all sorts of offers. Well, I'd done work at CBS and done their hockey, and ABC, I'd done Olympics, and I'd been flowing around, over across the border a lot. And they knew that the ABC really wanted me. And so what he did, he called me in, he said, how much is your tax? I never forgot this conversation. How much tax are you paying? And I said, I think I'm paying 50%. How would you like to pay 15%?
Yeah, I mean,
Anybody
I'm
would
all
like
ears.
that.
Yeah.
My late wife would have said, well, take it. So I said, well, how? He said, what if we signed you to a contract and we'll make it non-exclusive except for hockey. And I said, well, how about hockey the other side of the border? Because I already was getting into that. I wasn't there yet. He said, no, the other side of the border is fine, but nothing else. I don't know how I ever got to do baseball and everything, but we have an exclusivity on hockey. They forgot that baseball was going to be run by Labatt's and all that stuff, but that's another. He said, I'll make it a 10-year deal.
Wow.
Unheard of in the business.
Unheard of, and there were no contractors. Now everybody's
Oh, yeah.
freelance, right?
Yeah.
They call it. But here I am, the only freelance sports producer in town. Now the networks are coming to me and say, would you like to do tennis? Would you like to do golf? Would you like to, that's lucky. That's just plain luck. Because when I finally realized what he'd done, and when I moved on to the Olympics as my permanent job and running all the Olympics all over the world and everything, I had to get out of that contract because I'd signed another one for 10 years. That's 20, made it 20.
Right.
And I just was starting in the second part, and I was only 2 years into it. And what Ted did was smart. He just said, you got to stay one more year with us no matter who else you work with, so you can get a replacement.
Now, if we look at Hockey Night in Canada, you, as an executive producer, I think one of the big things you did is you always picked the right talent. Always, all the way
Oh, the
through.
right talent picked me.
Oh, yeah,
He
they
never
came-
takes credit for anything he does, but
No, it's true. I mean, I was, but I was willing to take chances, and I had a great friend in Clarence Campbell, the president, and Brian O'Neill, the vice president of the NHL. A lot of owners I had great relationships with, even Harold Ballard. And
Yeah, he wasn't a bad guy.
you know what? And Sam Pollock, the GM of the Canadiens, was a good friend. And what happened was just it's like osmosis. You know, you do something and you hire Howie Meeker. You know, and the next day he's fired by everybody. But you say no. And Imperial Oil and Ford, I had those guys, especially the presidents and ad managers, behind me. I was given great advice by a guy who lives out here in Niagara, Terry O'Malley, said, "You get those guys on your side." And so the networks and even the executives were afraid I'd leave, because then they'd have to face up to Imperial Oil, Ford, and Molson, not me. And I did the same thing with Don Cherry, and had to go to the president of the CBC, my tennis buddy Pierre Junot, and save him. And but it's all part of the game of television. You know, it's all a game, the executives. And
Right.
most of the executives can't do what I do. In fact, all of them, to be honest about it. And so, you know, you're a commodity, and they want to keep you, and the people at Hockey Night Canada wanted to keep me.
And your success.
And even
over
when
the years?
even when I left the show after 20 years, I had to stay that 20th year because my boss wanted to find someone to replace me.
So-
And they did, no problems.
So most of your talent, there's 13 of them, I think, that you picked.
13 are in the
In the
Hall.
hockey,
Hockey.
yeah, 13,
Yeah.
made the Hockey Hall of Fame, except one,
Don Cherry.
Don
Yeah.
Cherry, who's the guy you saved because they were going to get rid of him after.
He'll be
the
in, he'll be in.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
just
yeah.
got on Canada's Walk
Definitely.
of Fame. Yeah, it's been a good, but the thing now that I do, I work with a lot of charities, as you know, and I'm still trying to keep myself active. I've done 2 great books and bestsellers, and I try to work at stuff. And one of the nice things about now is I can lend whatever talent I have to things that are charities, players helping players, the
Right.
Steve Ludzik roast, all that stuff, and I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it.
And what's your most proud moment?
I would say my children.
Yeah.
My daughter is an executive at Bell, has had a great career in television and abroad and here and Singapore with ESPN and stuff. And my son, who would have known, you know, he was a great 21 years he played in the NHL. He's now assistant general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. And before we leave, you have to root for the Montreal Canadiens.
All right.
Part of the Mellanby family tradition.
All right.
Or else I'm going to burn these tapes.
We don't use tape anymore. See?
No, we don't.
Any regrets? Things you wanted to do, didn't do?
A lot of them, but you can't go backwards. You always got to go forwards. I think that my one regret is I didn't continue on in entertainment and variety. I did do the Fred Astaire, Petula Clark special in L.A., and I wanted to be the next Norman Jewison and do feature films. That was my
ultimate dream.
But never happened.
He also did Andy. We'll get into this in another show because his entertainment and the people he knew and worked with.
Crazy.
Incredible. Andy Williams was another one.
And a lot of
Yes.
the Hockey Night in Canada guys. I get stories about them all.
We actually wanted to work for Ralph, and he never noticed.
I
us.
know. You know, I would have loved to have done
Well,
something with them, you know.
We did actually.
Especially-
I shouldn't say. No, we did work with him. We worked on a couple of major
We
events.
worked,
Yes.
we worked on
Good.
a couple of charitable
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. But I want to leave you with something.
Okay.
Because I think you're a sweetheart. So
Okay.
I don't, but
I've got a crush on you, sweetie pie. All the day and night time, hear me sigh, and oh, you're pardon my blush. 'Cause I have got a crush, my baby, on you.
looks like another show for sure. Ralph, thank you so much. We
Thanks for
appreciate
coming by in the man cave.
We're here at the Man Cave with Ralph Mellanby on the Peet Reet Show, and another couple of shows guaranteed we're gonna be doing with Ralph. I guarantee.
I
Absolutely.
would love to do that.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you
I
next
love
time.
talking about myself. That's why.
All right, there we go.